Hello, Cleveland, and welcome to another edition of the Dogland podcast. It's been a while, been almost over a month. We're kind of in this lull period of Browns football where there's not much going on, but with mini camp going on this week, figured we'd sit down, do a podcast. Anthony is not with me tonight, but I did bring a guest on. She's been writing with the Dogland since about, that was what, late March, early April. I think it's
Yeah.
been you, John, with us. She put out a great series at the time talking about the best draft picks from each day of the draft, and it was great. If anybody hasn't seen it, go back on the dogland.com and check it out. She's also one of the, I would say, one of the better underrated podcasters in the Cleveland group. I mean, she has three: Crunch Time with Katelin, the possession, no, Time of Possession.
Time of
Almost
possession.
almost said the possession arrow, but that's
Yeah, no,
that's
that's
Pat.
Pat's. Yeah.
And then the leadoff, which is a great baseball pod. It's Katelin Marshall, aka Katelin knows CLE. Katelin, how are you?
I'm doing well, Jack. Dude, when you're like, hey, you want to come on the pod? I'm like, yeah. I want to come on everybody's pod. What you mean?
Yeah, I mean, you are part of the Dogland team. Want to get everybody on the pod at some point. So I figured, you know, why not have Katelin come on? I mean, it's great. Always love talking Cleveland sports with people, especially you. I was on your podcast last month and it was a lot of fun. So I figured return the favor and have you on to talk some Browns football.
Dude, I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. But like I said, mini camp this week. It was good to see the guys back out on the field. There really wasn't much that came out of it. There was a little bit, and we'll definitely dive into it. Caitlin, I would start off with this. I mean, first of all, thankfully, no one held out, no one got hurt that didn't have an injury coming into mini camp. So we had our tour de Berea on the sidelines. Beckham was Beckham, which is obviously the big name we're going to talk about. Delpit, some of the rookies that got hurt during their little mini camp, but uh, you know, the big thing, Odell Beckham was out on the field doing drills, and it was kind of a surprise, but at the same time, like modern science, modern medical like stuff, like it doesn't shock me that 8 months after he tore his ACL that he's back out on the field, but it did shock me at the same time, and it looked good. He looked good out on the field. It was great seeing 13 back out there.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, when you think of Odell Beckham Jr., you think of an elite athlete, and him being what eight, like you said, 8 months away or 8 months after his ACL injury, and he's out here, running routes and stuff. Man, you can only be positive, right? You can only be positive looking forward to, the training camp and the regular season because he's going to be 100%. At the same time, man, I hate this time of year. I hate it so much because only bad things ever happen.
Yeah, I mean,
So
yeah.
it's just people get hurt. You have holdouts. You have, especially if you're a good team now and people are going to get paid eventually, you're going to have holdouts. So it's just like, I hate this time of year. Can we get to training camp? And even that, can we get to a couple preseason games? And then finally, can we get to just week one with everything intact?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen it across the league. There's a couple players on key teams like they held out, like Stephon Gilmore, Jamal Adams, but he had a reason, and like the Seahawks cleared him from not even attending. But there's guys, it's contract years. They will hold out. They will not even attend. They'll take the fines. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, prime example, but that's a whole nother situation in of itself. But like, you would have thought maybe one player would held out. Maybe Ronnie Harrison is a contract year, maybe some of the big names that are in a contract year, but no, everybody showed up. Like there wasn't a dispute over, the whole OTA saga. I mean, everybody knew it was mandatory minicamp. They came, they put in the work, and that was that. And that was great. And I mean, and even to see Odell out there, the fact that he's making cuts, I mean, just out there participating in full team drills. He didn't the last day. I think that was probably planned by the team, but seeing him out there on individual drills on day one, team drills on day two, and just be out there with his teammates putting in the work, like it was great to see. It was great to see everybody there. Everybody out on the field just trying to get better, getting acclimated with one another. Clowney coming in, getting acclimated with Myles Garrett. Him saying like he's never met a guy with the physical traits that he's had in the 8 years he's been in the league until he met Myles Garrett. Like seeing them two together, Caitlin, I don't know if you want to chime in on this, but like seeing those two together, it just like brought like all the realization in like those two are going to be our bookend pass rushers. And like if you would have told me this like 2 or 3 years ago, I would never believe this would have been a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to even think that, because Clowney's played with some pretty good players. I mean, obviously, probably the best player defensively, JJ Watt, and we know how much of a monster he is. And then Clowney's a freak of nature of himself. Like, I mean, this dude was what projected to be a first round pick, a sophomore, junior in high school, and he comes to Cleveland and he's like, "Yo, Myles Garrett is a freak of nature," and just again, it's just like, can they stay healthy? Same thing with Odell, man. Like, I mean, they're very similar in a way. When Clowney's on the field, man, he's a stud. When Odell's on the field, he's a stud. It's just I mean, I'm excited, but at the same time, man, I got to be honest with you. The injuries and the freak injuries, it just scares me now because we actually have real expectations, and those crazy injuries can always, I mean, they could derail a season. So I'm cautiously optimistic for everything what the Browns are going to do, but I mean, they're banking on a lot of players who, like I said, are injury prone, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you look back last year, like Grant Delpit got hurt, and we all were just like, "Man, what are we gonna do at safety?" And we had
Yeah.
to go through Andrew Sendejo, all that experience, and it's like now you have Delpit obviously coming off injury, Greedy coming off injury, and we'll get to the cornerback room, but like at the safety room, we have Harrison, we have John Johnson now, we have even Sheldrick Redwine, even though he's definitely on the bubble. Like we have security blankets at that position. Cornerback, not so much, but wide receiver, we have security blankets in case Odell gets hurt again because that wide receiver room is stacked. I mean, yeah, in the pass rusher room, man, we have some guys, but they're all unknowns outside of Myles and Clowney. So it's like, yeah, anytime now with these mini camps, and then once we get into training camp, I'll have bated breath too because we have high expectations. One injury could like shatter everything, but at the same time, we have a lot of depth on this team, and Stefanski and his coaching staff, they don't fret over big injuries. They're always just like next man up. And I think now, even like because we're in this window, if we need to go get a guy like Ronnie Harrison last year, Andrew Berry will go try to find someone for real cheap, and hopefully it pays off. So I mean, yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic about you, like you, but at the same time, I trust this organization now to that if something happens, they're going to prepare who's on the team, and if they need to go get a guy, our front office will go try to find someone to fill that void.
Yeah, and no doubt. I mean, say Clowney goes down for a week or two. I mean, you have someone like Takk McKinley who has a lot to prove on a 1-year deal. John Johnson has been, you know, he's played in a lot of games, and I mean, I don't even think he missed a snap last year if he was their play caller.
No, I don't think so.
So I mean, they are like, it's not like last year. It's definitely not like last year, when we had basically you and me playing safety and cornerback in the playoffs for the Browns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I mean, it just, yeah. I mean, hopefully we don't get to that point again, especially at the cornerback position. But yeah, they upgraded the defense big time, added some depth, and hopefully it will pay off. And the defense takes a big step in 2021. The big topic this week was off the field stuff. It was extension talks. Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, and Denzel Ward, they all met with the media, and the key topic in those media sessions was about the extension talks. And before we even jump into it, Katelin, I don't like to take shots at the fan base and how they, and the media even like. I understand people get frustrated with what the media like brings up and how they ask these players, and I've seen this brought up on social media. They are not trying to tear the team apart. The media is doing their jobs. What's the key point right now with these players? Whether or not extension talks are happening, whether they want to stay in Cleveland, whether they are focused on getting a deal done now. And people think, oh, the media is just trying to tear the team apart and trying to make it about all the money. No, we all want to know if A, Baker and all these guys are going to sign extensions now before the season starts and that it doesn't drag into the season? And B, do they want to be in Cleveland? Obviously, they're going to say, yeah, I want to be in Cleveland. This is my home. This is where they took a chance on me, blah, blah, blah. But the media is just doing their job. And I had to get into a debate with a fan on, I think it was Wednesday now. I don't think it was Thursday. Because a fan attacked a media member for a freaking picture that they use on their article. And it's like, why are we attacking the media when they're just simply doing their jobs? I just don't understand it anymore.
A Zoom picture of anything.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a picture like they were there, or like, you know, he caught Baker Mayfield making some weird face. It was just like screenshot of the Zoom. And that was it. And somebody was attacking Ben Axelrod for it. It's like, what? It's like, it's stupid. It makes no sense. Part of me feels like there's a percentage of Browns fans that would want only players like Mack Wilson who are below average, yet just say good things about the city, tell us we're pretty, than rather have just like a normal, really good player who, like you said, of course, Baker and Denzel and Nick Chubb, and especially Denzel, like, of course they're going to say they want to be in Cleveland. Denzel's from here. You know, of course Baker, wants to, I would assume he would want to be here, right? Like, they took him number one for a reason. And he's gone through hell and back just to, finally see light at the end of the tunnel. You would think that, he would want to see it through. And then, you have like Nick Chubb, where, of course, like what is Nick Chubb going to say? He doesn't say anything regardless. So of course he's going to say, I want to be here. And he even said, what did he say? He said his agents and the front office have had discussions about a potential extension. And if Nick Chubb is the heart and soul of your team, then you got to pay him. If you keep saying all these great things of how you would want 52 other Nick Chubbs on your team, then not paying him, I think, is a giant sign of disrespect to not only Nick Chubb, but for any potential player you bring in. It just, you have to do right by your good players. And Nick Chubb is an elite running back. That's the other thing. He's really good. We could make, that was this stupid argument, last week about Derrick Henry versus Nick Chubb. It was just ridiculous, like people going back and forth. They're both really good players, and both of them deserve all the money that they can get.
Yeah.
So the Browns should pay Nick Chubb because he's an elite running back. It's just that simple. Sorry, I rant.
No, you're fine. My favorite part of that whole Henry versus Nick Chubb debate was, I think it was a guy, and he's based out of Tennessee. He goes, well, Derrick Henry carried the load by himself. Nick Chubb has to split carries. Yeah, he's splitting carries with another top 10 running back in the league and Kareem Hunt. Like, it's not like Nick Chubb's terrible. It's like he's splitting carries with another elite running back and Kareem Hunt. Like, don't use that as a knock on Nick Chubb. It's like, we're actually doing it the smart way. You're running Derrick Henry into the ground, giving him 400 plus carries a year. Yeah, he's a big son of a bitch, but at some point he is going to break down.
Yeah, and people act like if Tennessee didn't have Kareem Hunt, they wouldn't use him too.
Exactly.
So it makes no sense.
Yeah,
it makes no sense. That whole debate was just stupid. Now, personally, I would take Nick Chubb, and I feel like I'm pretty objective, because like just watching both those guys, they're both just elite guys, but there's just something, the way Nick Chubb just kind of flows. I just feel like, man, it's different because he just has everything. And if he could, maybe he's not like the best of the best because he does have issues catching the ball out of the backfield at times. We saw that in the playoffs.
Yes.
But if he could develop into that, he was like the best blocker out of the backfield too. What more do you want from this guy? You know what I mean?
Right.
I think it was the fullback.
Janovich.
Janovich. He was ranked number 1 for Pro Football Focus. Nick Chubb was like 2 or 3.
Yeah. Nick, that's one of the underrated things that I don't think it gets talked about enough is Chubb's blocking ability. And that was a knock on him his rookie year because they said, oh, he's not as good as blocker as Carlos Hyde. Well, maybe he wasn't right away, but Chubb's definitely established himself as one of the better pass blockers in the league. And he's not bad as a run blocker either. When they put him and Hunt in the backfield together, like Chubb can open up holes and so can Kareem Hunt. Like I went back and was watching tape from 2019 and man, some of the holes that those two created for each other was insane. But yeah, the whole debate among like who's better between Henry and Chubb. I mean, it's a great debate to have, but guess what? At the end of the day, they're probably the two best pure runners in the league. I know the debate will be like, where do they rank among all the running backs? And of course, the ones that are phenomenal pass catchers, McCaffrey, Kamara, like those guys are going to be up there in that debate too. But when you're talking about pure running backs, it's Chubb, it's Henry, and then you can debate which one's one and which one's two. Since we're talking about Chubb, and I mean all the extensions in general, Katelin, if you were Andrew Berry and you're prioritizing these guys, how would you prioritize getting their extensions done? Obviously, Chubb's on his final year of his contract, and you have Baker and Ward for another year. You have another year to negotiate, and you also got to throw Wyatt Teller into the mix. How would you rank those in terms of priority?
Well, quarterback's the most important position, so I would assume everybody would just rank your quarterback number one. I think even though Denzel Ward only averages 12, 13 games a year, and he's going to miss his 3 games probably this year, especially with an extended season. When he's on the field, he is a dynamite corners, and you just cannot find those players, especially if the Browns are going to be good. They're not going to find elite corner play at 28, 29, hopefully 32 in the draft. You know what I mean? You're just not going to find that. Hopefully like Greg Newsome develops into a stud. But if he's just a quality number 2, and after his 5 years in Cleveland gets paid somewhere else, that was a successful draft pick. So I would say Baker and Ward, I would give them basically whatever they wanted. And then definitely, because he's going into free agency after this year, Nick Chubb's on my football team for 2022 in some fashion. Whether it's long-term, whether it's a franchise tag, I don't care. He's on my team. And then Wyatt Teller, I'm not going to break the bank for Wyatt Teller. I'm sorry, I just can't do that. Unless that means you're giving up someone like Joel Bitonio, who's due, I think, like $10 million next year, $10 to $12 million next year. And you just kind of replace that money with Wyatt Teller's money. But interior offensive line, as good as Wyatt Teller has been, we have the best offensive line coach in the league, in my opinion. If he can develop somebody who's just solid, maybe not as elite as Wyatt Teller has been playing last year, just somebody solid to play right guard, then I just have that trust that he's going to develop somebody, whether it's the dude they took out of Cincinnati. I mean, Chris Hubbard played pretty solid last year when they finally moved him in. It's just like, I can't break the bank over interior guard, especially right guard. You know what I mean? I just can't. And it sucks that, this is the thing about being a good team now. Not every good player is going to be on your team because you have to pay everybody. So you have to look at guys like Bitonio. You have to look at guys like Treader, who are going to be due a lot of money next year. Austin Hooper is another guy people don't really want to talk about. Like, he's going to have a giant jump next year, but the Browns can kind of get out of that deal. Jarvis Landry. I mean, it sucks that these our fan favorite players may not be here when, the Browns go on their deep, deep run, but it's just the nature of the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it sucks we have to be in the spot where we have to get rid of good players, but it's the price you pay when you are a good football team. Like, you have to end up making these tough business decisions. But if we want to keep the window open, say 5-7 years, you're going to have to make the decisions. And of course, you can manipulate the cap. We've seen that prime example this offseason with teams, creating cap space, adding void years to contracts in order to keep players. Like Tampa Bay kept every starter on their team.
Yep.
They could make it happen, and I'm sure Andrew Berry could do it. But at the same time, the Tampa Bay is in a small window because once Tom Brady retires, they're not going to be a Super Bowl contender anymore. the Browns are entering their window and they can be a Super Bowl contender for the next 5 to 7 years. Like I said, I'm agree with you on all your priority list. My thing is, this is Baker. I wonder if he's going to bet on himself this year and try to, he could probably get, I would say, between 35 and 40 million in an extension right now. Is he going to try to bet on himself and try to jump Dak Prescott, jump potentially, uh, I would say, if he comes back, everything gets cleared, Deshaun Watson signed his extension. Is he going to try to bet on himself and try to get to Patrick Mahomes money? I doubt that. At this, if I was Baker, I'd probably take the money now just because you don't know what's going to happen. Same with Denzel Ward because of his injury history. If he can get between 15, $17 million a year, take it. Take the money when you can get it. Like, I know guys are willing to bet on themselves and sometimes it pays off, but if they're trying to wait and capital and try to bet on themselves, I don't know if that would work out so well. I don't know what the Browns are offering, but if it's close to that range on both those guys, I would definitely try to do it. The Wyatt Teller,
I'm team sign every player early before they hit free agency.
yeah,
I'm sign Baker tomorrow, sign Denzel Ward tomorrow, sign Nick Chubb tomorrow. I'm team just do all that. So you know what you have to work with going forward when it comes to the cap and everything else. Because I think Baker's gonna have a really, really good year next year. And I think he might be one of the most efficient quarterbacks next year. And they're either gonna have to pay him a ton of money yearly, or they're going to have to guarantee a whole bunch of money. And I heard Albert Breer on Bull and Fox. I went back and listened to it, and they were talking about kind of the Baker extension. And do you think Baker takes a larger guaranteed money, or do you think he ends up being, for a 2-year period, one of the top paid quarterbacks in the NFL?
I could see him taking the shorter deal because I forget who said this, but I heard somebody say like Kirk Cousins was really smart with the way he approached his deal. Because he took the 3 years fully guaranteed with Minnesota, and then he got another big deal like 2 years in.
Yeah, because they made the playoffs.
Yeah, he took shorter deals, but at the same time got more guaranteed money. So maybe Baker takes that approach, and it might be better for the Browns in the long run, as same for him. But also at the same time, I could see him it depends on how his agent wants to negotiate this deal. The same with Andrew Berry, obviously. So
I think another factor, not to interrupt, but
no, you're fine.
He's also like 3 years older than Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. People kind of forget about that. I think after his 5th-year option, he'll be 27 or 28. So if he signs a 5-year deal, I mean, that's into his prime. That's late, tail end of his prime at 32, 33 years old. I mean, obviously quarterbacks play forever, but, he's also, maybe there is some merit to him taking shorter term, big money deals. If the Browns can get out of those deals easier, yet he could also make more money in the long term because he's losing those couple years where, because when he was drafted, he was 23 years old. So
yeah.
Unlike Lamar Jackson, who I think is 25-ish, same thing with Josh Allen. So it's definitely interesting when it comes to Bake, but I'm on team just sign him right now because I need that to happen. And if he sets the market, he sets the market. Who cares? I can't. If the Ravens and Buffalo and those are your competitors right now, if they have to pay more because you paid Baker Mayfield right now, they have to pay more for Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, then it seems like a win-win for you and going up because they have to use more of their cap or however they'll do it.
Yeah,
I just don't think. Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I don't
you're
mean
good
because I keep thinking about this. Mary Kay Cabot had an article back in February, and she was basically saying how there was a risk to sign your quarterback before they hit their 5th-year option because of like the last few guys that have signed their deal. Patrick Mahomes, obviously, I mean, he's paired with Andy Reid, so I mean, and he's like, the best quarterback in the league right now. Deshaun Watson, an entirely different situation. So it's kind of murky. But she was bringing up Jared Goff and Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
My whole thing is I think Baker Mayfield is better than Carson Wentz. I think he's better than Jared Goff. And if not for a crazy situation in Houston with Deshaun Watson not being there and now his legal issues, I feel like the Carson Wentz, the Jared Goff, those are outliers. You know what I mean? They're just so different. And Carson Wentz had a ton of injuries. Jared Goff just wasn't that good, but of course you're going to pay him because you just went to the Super Bowl with him and you were winning games and you're making the playoffs. So if you think Stefanski is good and you trust him to be your quarterback guru, whatever, for Baker Mayfield, and you also think Baker Mayfield's good too, then just fucking pay him. Just get it over with. As long as he's willing to take it, and if he wants to bet on himself, cool. He'll go out there. You'll have to pay him a little bit more, but who cares? Because you'll for sure know if he's good or not. But if you have an opportunity to pay him right now. Sorry, that was my rant.
No, you're completely fine. I enjoy your rants. My thing with extending Baker, you can't, and people want to compare it to Goff and Wentz. You can't be scared to pay your quarterback. If you trust him, if you think he is the guy that's going to take this team to the Super Bowl and win Super Bowls, and you're paying him based on what you think he's going to be for the next 4, 5, 6 years, however long the length of the contract is, you can't be scared. Yeah, the Eagles and the Rams look terrible for extending Goff and Wentz, and it didn't work out for them. They got out of the deal. They did get something for him in a trade. You know, the Rams got Matthew Stafford out of it, which is an upgrade. We'll see how they play out. They sent Philly sent Wentz to the Colts and potentially could get a first round pick if he stays healthy. We'll see how that plays out. Odds would say no, but they did still get some kind of trade return for those guys. If Baker signs the extension, if he kind of tends to slide, the Browns will get something for him in a trade. Some team will be willing to take a chance on Baker Mayfield. He's talented. The only thing is, can he continue to exceed expectations? I think he can. And I think he's worth the risk of signing to a long-term deal. But I don't think it's going to be a risk because Baker's bet on himself his whole career. And he's took every hater that's been thrown in his direction and made them eat shit. I mean, you look at what he's done since he's been drafted here. The media attacks him. 2019 was a bad year, but that wasn't on Baker. But you look at 2018 and 2020, I think that's what Baker Mayfield is, and I think he's getting better. So I think at this point, you do pay him. My thing is, and I'm going to be fascinated by this, who's going to get paid first, Allen, Mayfield, or Lamar? I'm willing to bet Lamar is going to be the last one paid, A, because he's going to set the market, and B, his mom is negotiating his deal because he does not have an agent.
Yeah. I mean, that's a giant factor.
I was listening to Pro Football Talk and Florio and Chris Sims, and they were talking about this is a big thing. And he said, like, they're having to explain like all the terms of the deal to Lamar and his mom because they are pretty much negotiating their own deal. And it's like, I feel like that one's going to be the last one done. So it's going to be interesting to see between Allen and Mayfield who strikes first. Because obviously, if Allen signs first, then that sets the market for Mayfield. If Mayfield sets it, vice versa. So it's going to be an interesting summer because I do think that the Browns would like to get something done now. But at the same time, I wonder, is Baker going to wait and be willing to bet on himself like he's done his whole career?
What's crazy is Baker has a better track record than Josh Allen. People forget Josh Allen his first 2 years. He was completely awful.
Yeah.
His completion percentage was like 56%. I mean, he literally could not throw the ball accurately at all. And then this past year, he jumps all the way up to close to 70%, 40 total touchdowns. He was part of more touchdowns than the Bills punted last year, which is just insane to think about. But still, all that being said, Baker still has, that rookie year, man. We all saw something. And even through the garbage of Freddie Kitchens, and I loved Freddie, and I was team Freddie all the way, but he was god awful. And Baker still put up fairly decent numbers. I mean, obviously the interceptions were super high. I think it was 22 touchdowns, 21 interceptions.
Yep.
But better play calling and just an actual game plan, you got to think, cut down 5-6 interceptions and add 5 or more touchdowns. And it, Baker's playing as a just, but even that year, he was still a quarterback where you could go out there and win a game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we all still had confidence that year. I mean, it's just insane to think about 2019. Nick Chubb almost had the rushing record, if not for Derrick Henry going for 140 in week 17. Odell and Jarvis both had 1,000 yards each. Yet, if it just, like I said, if it was a little bit better play calling or a lot of it better play calling, there's no question Baker's probably signed right now because you're paying him as an elite quarterback. And then, last year, obviously it was the last 8-9 games, but he took you to the playoffs finally.
He won a playoff game.
He won a playoff game
and had us in position to go to the AFC title game.
And people don't want to pay him. That's just insane to me. It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
I understand. I kind of understand waiting, and I understand Baker himself betting on himself. But even if he comes out and he just has a Met year, you're still gonna pay him. It's okay. So just do it now. Like I keep saying, just do it now.
Absolutely. Just get it done, and then you can figure out what you're going to do going forward. How are you going to pay Ward? How are you going to pay Chubb? How you could potentially pay Teller?
Because that sets up everything. That's the thing. That sets up everything.
Like, there's a reason why the Chiefs signed Mahomes to a 10-year contract, and they can get out of it and they can renegotiate it at some point. But it's like, okay, we paid him, so now, okay, we'll pay Chris Jones, the defensive tackle. Now we'll try to figure out how we're going to pay these wide receivers, how we're going to revamp the offensive line in a year, like how they're going to pay the defensive guys, except Tyrann Mathieu, that's a situation that no one's really talking about. But they did that for a reason. They were like, okay, we're going to set Mahomes at this number, and then we're going to be able to fill out the roster. And then each year, Mahomes' cap number is set. We can renegotiate it, and then we can fill out the rest of the roster. Like, that would be something the Browns should do with Baker. Like, the cap's obviously going up, but hey, we're going to sign Baker to X deal, and then we're going to figure out how to fill this rest of the roster in to keep competing for Super Bowls each year and year out.
That's what every good team does.
Yes.
We're a good team now. We have to start acting like it.
And we have a bunch of Harvard geniuses in that front office.
And that's the thing. We have Andrew Berry with these crazy deals. I mean, what was it? $18 million cap hit signing all those free agents this offseason.
Yep.
I mean, you signed John Johnson, you signed Takk McKinley, all those guys, and it was like an $18 million hit on the cap. Just insane.
No doubt. One guy that we had to cut in order to create some cap room was Sheldon Richardson. And according to Mary Kay, the Browns did give him a good offer to come back, but Richardson chose to go take a fresh start. He signed with the team he was with before he signed with the Browns a couple years ago, the Minnesota Vikings. Kay, you disappointed that Richardson ultimately didn't come back?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you weren't going to pay him $13 million this year.
No.
So you're gonna cut him, and whether you're gonna use that $13 million to, I mean, obviously they signed Clowney and they trying to just replace the money a little bit, or you're gonna roll over cap for next year, which is like the way you create cap space. Obviously, Jack knows way more than I do about this. I just read his articles and read his tweets about it. But yeah, I mean, it sucks. But at the same time, it seems like the Browns are going with the there's power in numbers when it comes to defensive tackle, signing almost every defensive tackle available, just as camp guys. And I think the only lock to make the team are Togiai and Malik Jackson. I don't know about Billings, man. I would hate that he would get cut in a year where, he took off. But I mean, it's a question mark, right?
He was looking a little beefy in those photos.
That's it. I mean, hey, I don't mean to insult the guy, but I mean, you just don't know, right?
Yeah.
You just don't know what his plan, what their plan for him, is really. Obviously, they got the undrafted free agent. Was it
Marvin Wilson?
I would suspect he would make the team, and then Malik McDowell, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, he's a question mark. He's never played in the NFL, but I mean, first round talent. I mean, if he could just give you solid snaps, ideally, right? Sheldon Richardson's better than all those guys.
Yes.
But I think we learned last year that we just need depth, and you're not going to pay $13 million for a player who, or even, I mean, here, I'll ask you this. If they release him at the start of free agency, does he get more money?
I don't know. Because, like, Sheldon Richardson's a name, but he was starting to trend downward. Like, he wasn't the same Sheldon Richardson when we signed him 2-3 years ago in free agency. Right. Like, he was declining. I don't think he gets, I think he got what, like $4.5 million from Minnesota. That's probably, he might have got a little bit more than that just because of his name and what he's done in his career. But I don't see him getting more than maybe 6 or 7. So yeah, he lost out on a little bit, and he kind of vented. I don't know if you've seen the quote,
right?
But he
I
did
know
vent
that's what I was going to bring up. Yeah.
I don't see him getting much more than what he got. He might have got a couple extra million from a team, but I mean, to get $4 million at this point in the middle of June on a 1-year deal, I mean, that's still good for him and his agency. So yeah, I don't think he would have got much more. Richardson's a good player, but he's not the same player he was a couple years ago.
And obviously the age too, right? At 31 years old, that's another giant factor. But then I was looking at defensive tackles list because what's his name? Larry Ogunjobi got $6 million. And we watched him for 4 years play really well as a rookie and then just kind of go play extremely mediocre.
He got worse each year
which is insane to think about, right?
Yeah.
He played his best ball under Greg Williams on an 0-16 team.
Oh, God. And I like Larry too.
Yeah, and you're telling me Sheldon Richardson couldn't get like 6-7 million, even if it was from Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think he would have. I think he would have got 6 or 7. Like, he wasn't going to touch the 13 million that he got, that he was expected to get this year, but he would have made more than Larry.
I would assume, right?
Yeah.
You would think. But that defensive tackle free agent list, I mean, it's not good.
No.
I mean the best guys are the Geno Atkins, but he didn't play well the last few years. I think he was
and he was injured more than he was playing.
Yeah, that is the thing about Sheldon Richardson, and I won't say anything ever. I won't say anything bad about Sheldon Richardson ever. That guy was the defensive MVP in 2019. Played every snap, played hard. I mean, he's running down guys, especially after the Myles Garrett incident when he was suspended. I mean, he played with the most effort when we had no pressure. I mean, he was the only pass rusher on that line in 2019 and all of last year, man. I mean,
because they put him out on the edge after the Myles Garrett suspension.
Yeah, I mean,
he was playing inside. Yeah, because we had as much as I like his potential, Porter Gustin, we had a couple other guys that they just signed off the street. But yeah, I mean, Richardson, like, he was playing inside, but then he would kick outside and play on the edge. And I mean, yeah, he was playing good. Like, Richardson's a good player. I'm not going to take anything away from him, but
you're just not going to pay him that $13 million. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah. But I mean, like, when I look at this defensive tackle room, like, I like the Malik Jackson signing we picked up. Joe Wood said, like, he expects Billings to get back into shape, and I hope so, because I like his potential. I liked the free agent signing a year ago. Togiai is intriguing as a prospect. Marvin Wilson's intriguing as a prospect. I really want to know, like, what happened last season at Florida State with him, because PFF graded him so high his first 2 years at Florida State, and then 2020 was, and of course 2020 was a complete anomaly across all sports. But How do you go from a potential first round pick to undrafted? Like, I want to know the real story behind that. And then you mentioned Malik McDowell. He's the wild card. I heard that he looked really good in minicamp, but like our buddy Andy and Stephen Thomas said, they're out there running in a helmet and shorts. Like, you can't really say
exactly.
But I mean, the defensive tackle room is intriguing as a whole, but this and the next position group we'll talk about, these are like my biggest concerns as it pertains to the Browns going into 2021.
Yeah, it's just that defensive tackle. Like I I literally think they're just gonna go whoever the top four guys is in training camp makes a team. And like I said, the only lock is Malik Jackson, I think, and that's really only because he's a veteran. I
And he's
mean,
got guaranteed money.
his yeah, and he's got guaranteed money. But I mean, at that point, what $3 million? If he's playing that badly, you can cut him.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
But he does have that Joe Woods connection. He was with him in Denver when he was defensive coordinator. And then, like I said, Togi, I mean, because you spent a fourth-round pick on him. But other than that, man, that's it. It's kind of nice, right? It's kind of nice going into, you know, or talking right after OTAs and going, man, the defensive tackle room is. We don't really know much about it, but hopefully, you would assume your defensive tackle room isn't going to make or break your entire season.
Exactly. And the plus side is you have Miles and Clowney have the ability to kick inside. So
right. Exactly.
And then you have obviously Tack, you have Porter Gustin, you have
Weaver.
Yeah, Weaver's another wild card. But you have those three guys that can play on the edge, and then you can kick Miles and Clowney in on some plays, and they're both willing to do it. So the defensive tackle room isn't alarming, but at the same time, it is just because there's a lot of unknown going into the season.
Really, I think. Sorry.
Oh no, you're good.
I really think that as long as Toki stays healthy, because he's literally that one guy who could just clog up the middle.
Yeah.
And when I saw that pick, I was like, they have PTSD from that Raiders game.
Oh, they for sure do.
They cannot let that happen again. They cannot have somebody come into their house and playing in shitty weather and just completely play FU football and run it right up the gut. And that was probably one of the reasons why, Ogunjobi's not here and Sean Richardson aren't here either, because they're not good pass or run stopping guys, defensive tackles.
No.
So
no, they can't clog the middle. So I'm glad they drafted Togi because he can do that, and some of the other guys we got can do that as well. The other position group I'm really worried about still, even though we have Denzel Ward, even though we have Greg Newsome, who I think is going to be a good player. I just don't want to throw too much at him his rookie year. And even, Greedy Williams still has some potential, but the cornerback room, because, we're sitting here still in the middle of June, Katelin, and they still don't have another solid number 2 option behind Denzel Ward. And, they could have addressed it in free agency. They didn't. They tried. They could have added another rookie maybe early, but at the same time, they need a veteran presence in there. And as much as people like Greedy Williams, I like Greedy Williams. You can't bank on him after the shoulder injury last year because, it's a nerve issue. We don't know if it'll flare back up again. You look at some of the names that are out there, Steven Nelson's still out there on the free agent market. Brian Poole's still out there on the free agent market. And then, Stephon Gilmore's name is going to continue to get brought up. People are going to connect the Browns to him. I don't know if they'd trade for him because he's looking for a new contract. And then you get into a situation where are the Browns going to have to decide between Stephon Gilmore and Denzel Ward? That seems like a very logical answer. You go with Denzel Ward, but would the Browns be willing to trade for him, have him only go 1 year, and then just let him walk in free agency? I don't know that they do that, but you would have to think sometime over the next 6 weeks that the Browns add something else to the cornerback position. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah, 100%. You can never have too many corners. And last year was just like, that just proved every argument ever. You were playing in the playoffs with Terrence Mitchell, and it sucks that Terrence Mitchell didn't re-sign here, but I understand it. He wanted to go to Houston where he can play. He's 29 years old, so he'll be able to get maybe one more contract. He wanted just consistent playing time, and I respect it. I love Terrence Mitchell. I love what he did for the
I can't believe he was willing to go to Houston.
Hey, man, people are going to throw on him, right?
Yeah.
That defense is not good, so he's going to have his opportunities to guard, I don't know who's opposite of him, but, he's going to have opportunities to guard, top tier guys.
Time to live up to that name. Time to live up to that name, Money Mitch.
Yeah, he's going to play Tennessee twice a year.
Hmm.
and he's either going up against Julio Jones or A. Brown. So he's got an opportunity to prove it, right?
Yeah,
And
for
then you
sure.
have, I just they have to, right? They just have to. They can't. Corner is just so important, especially in today's game. And I understand you're gonna move guys like you're gonna move your safeties around like Grant Delpit and John Johnson to maybe play in the slot a little more. I'm sure we'll see JOK play in the slot at times, but you need some corners. And if you can go out and get Steven Nelson, if you go get, I mean, they were linked to Gary and Conley back in
He's
the
still
end of
out there.
March, and he's still a free agent. And I mean, he took an official visit to Cleveland. So
He did.
even him to be your fourth or fifth corner, you can never have too many corners. Last year proved it. So please just sign one more so I can go to sleep,
And,
calmly.
and I do feel stupid because I forgot to mention Troy Hill, but he's going to be the nickel. He might play outside because, like you said, they could move Delpit or Johnson, or even in some cases, you could throw JOK out there as a slot
Exactly.
corner. But yeah, they need to go get somebody else. Steven Nelson, I mean, ever since Pittsburgh cut him, I've been dying for the Browns to get him. But at the same time, and like, our fellow podcasters, Jake Burns, Stephen Thomas, these guys have said, are guys like Brian Poole and Steven Nelson willing to come here expecting that they would be the number 2 corner, but then maybe midway through the year, they start losing more and more time to Greg Newsome or to Greedy Williams. Like, are they willing to do that? Probably not. But I think as we get closer to camp, you're going to, maybe they're willing. They'll be like, hey, yeah, I won't get as much playing time, but I'm going to be playing in a great defense like the Browns and a chance to go win the Super Bowl. So hopefully at that point, they would be willing to come and play. They have to find something, even if they do trade for Gilmore and, Newsome has to sit a while and learn behind him. That's not even a bad thing either, because then you're learning behind not just one great corner, but 2. I don't know. It seems like a pipe dream to bring in Gilmore, but I'm sure Barry and Dee Podesta and the rest of the front office are looking at each possible option to bring in here to help the cornerback room.
What would you give up for Gilmore?
If it was a 1-year rental, I'd be fine giving up a 3rd round pick for him. Because I don't know how it works, but I don't know if we would still be subject to getting a comp pick. So if he leaves after a year, if we get a comp pick, it could potentially be a 3rd round pick getting back. I'm gonna have to ask Jack Duffin about this one. But I'd be willing to give up a 3rd for him if we could get the comp pick back. If not, maybe a conditional 4th. I know we got a couple 4ths next year. So what would you be willing to give up for him?
Probably no more than a 3rd round pick.
Yeah. And I'm not giving,
it would be a late 3rd round pick, like a comp pick or something like that. I'm thinking, a 4th and a 7th, maybe. Similar to what you gave up for Jarvis Landry. I don't know.
My only thing is, and I was saying this when the trade rumors were going around in the spring, anytime Belichick gets rid of a guy, I get nervous. Because there's a reason why he's getting rid of him. Now I know
Jamie Collins.
Jamie Collins, Adarius Thomas, Drew Bledsoe, but that was the whole Brady went, started becoming God. So, but I mean, he gets rid of guys at the right time and then they don't work out. And it's just the history's there, the track record's there. Even Randy Moss, he got rid of Randy Moss when he started tailing off. I mean, it's Belichick knows.
And Gilmore didn't really play that well. I know he had COVID last year, but I don't believe he graded out pretty well last year.
No, he had a down year. But I mean, I think the year before he was defensive player of the year, right?
He was defensive player of the year, yeah. Yeah. But he's also he's close to 30 or on the other side of 30.
I think he's over 30.
So I mean, that's a giant factor.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's risky, but I mean, if he can come back and be what he was in 2019, you put him up as a Denzel Ward. I mean, that would be nasty.
Even if he's the year number 2, like you said, because Denzel's going to be your number 1.
Yeah. Do you make the call to Richard Sherman? He wants to play for a championship contender.
If he wants to play, hell yeah.
Yeah, I know the Browns haven't been one of his teams listed, but
which is weird. That's weird. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Maybe him and Joe Woods didn't get along.
He liked Joe Woods. I thought.
Oh, did he? Okay. Yeah, it's
weird. I mean, he was the defensive backs coach and passing game coordinator when they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, there's something there. maybe him and Baker don't like each other. Maybe Baker said,
I
guys, because
well,
remember
that
the
was
whole handshake
yeah.
thing?
I was gonna say the whole
Yeah.
handshake, but I thought they smoothed everything out because
Yeah.
it was like that Monday. He was like, "Oh yeah, my bad." Or you went on his podcast with Chris Collinsworth,
Oh, that's right.
and we are just like, "All right, yo, my bad. I didn't
Yeah,
see you shake hands or something. I don't know."
that is weird. I know he's definitely in his 30s, but
I
I
think he's
mean,
like 30. I think he'll be 34 at the start
yeah.
of the
But
season.
it is weird that he did like he had a list of teams that he wanted to play for, and the Browns weren't one of them. And I'm like, well, the Browns are a Super Bowl contender, Richard. Like, come play with us. Like, we need some more nastiness on that defense, and he would definitely bring it.
Yeah, even if it's just
It's a 1 year deal. Like,
a 1 year deal, you're at the tail end of your career. You're not going back to Seattle. That's not going to happen.
right.
So, I mean, what are the other teams? The Rams?
I think it was going back to the 49ers. I know
I
I
can see
remember the
that.
Saints.
Would you're telling me you would rather go play in the NFC South,
Yeah,
go up against Tom Brady?
I know.
It'd be nice, right? I mean, Richard Sherman and Lattimore, that'd be nice, but I mean, whew, I mean, the Browns, I mean, there are I can understand going back to the 49ers. The Saints doesn't make any sense. Unless it's a truly like just being familiar with the teams and the players you're playing against. That would be the only thing that would make sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he's probably he's going to end up back with
The 49ers.
yeah. Okay, the odds, okay, this was May 31st. The Browns they were 8th on the list of teams to sign him, but they had plus 950 odds and the Seahawks were the favorites.
See, that doesn't make any sense.
I mean,
they hated each other.
Yeah, but we think they hate each other because didn't they cut him or did he I don't even remember. But yeah, I mean,
I felt like he walked. He was one of those guys who got screwed because he was a late bloomer, and then when he signed his original his extension with Seattle, it wasn't like as big because he was only like 1 year off of because what was he, like a third or fourth round pick out of Stanford, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he was a late round pick. That draft class got like burned at the stake by all the media experts.
Yeah.
And then like 2 years later they won the Super Bowl and it was touted as one of the greatest classes ever.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I wonder if if they even have interest. I know he's in his 30s, so that's like one of the guardrails, but I mean, he's still he's still an impact player at the cornerback position. Like even coming off an Achilles injury a couple years ago, like he's still good. He knows the defense.
Played really well. Yeah, he played really well for the 49ers the last couple of years. And again, you're just adding depth. You know, someone who can teach Greg Newsome the ropes. You know what I mean?
Right, and Greedy. I mean,
Greedy, yeah, that too.
I mean, it would not be bad for the young guys to learn from one of the greatest ever. I mean, it would not hurt at all. Yeah, as we wrap up, Katelin, one of the funny headlines of the week. It wasn't even a headline; it was a tweet. It was from one of the media members that cover the Baltimore Ravens, and he tweeted about Lamar Jackson threw a 50-yard bomb to Watkins, and everybody's like, "Well, where's the video? Where's the video?" And turns out the Baltimore Ravens have banned media members from filming Lamar Jackson throwing the football. And I'm a Lamar Jackson fan. I have been since his days at Louisville. But it's like, why are we still doing this? And the 4 years in his career, and we know he's not the greatest passer. He can throw, but he's not known for his throwing. He's known for his mobility, his speed, and everything. But it's like, we know he can't throw. Why are you guys trying to hide the fact that he can't throw the football accurately or throw it as well as some of the other top quarterbacks in the league? It's just baffling that Baltimore's doing this.
The fact that Baltimore put out that video that sparked everything, the wobbly 12-yard out to Sammy Watkins, it was literally a duck, and social media obviously did what social media does, and they just roasted him into the ground. And it's just like like you said, we all know Lamar Jackson and his strengths. His strengths are are being that threat as a runner and going out of the pocket. I mean, we all know it. The fact that they're, like you said, they're pretending it doesn't exist when he's in his fourth year. He started and won an MVP already. Yet you have to put these blinders on your friend. I mean, isn't that concerning? You would think that you have to guard your quarterback from social media memes because he can't throw the football.
Yeah,
And this is the
especially with,
quarterback, and this is the quarterback you're gonna pay all this money to because they're
yeah.
gonna pay him.
Oh yeah. I mean, Harbaugh said earlier this week it's essentially a done deal. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're going to give him 35, 40 million, maybe even more, and it's like you're going to shield him from criticism because he doesn't throw tight, accurate spirals. Like it's a
And then
big
you wonder,
concern.
and then you wonder why the best receiver they can sign in free agency is Sammy Watkins.
Yeah. Although they did draft Rashad Bateman, which really ticks me off
Yeah,
on
but he
draft
had
night.
no choice. But he had no choice. He
That
was
is true.
drafted.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a number of free agents. I mean, everybody shit on Juju for going back to Pittsburgh. If you're Juju, of course you're going to go back to Pittsburgh. They're going to throw 75 times a game, and he's going to get targeted a whole bunch because he's a slot receiver, and Ben he can barely throw the ball 20 yards down the field, just strength wise. So of
Right.
course he's going to go back to Pittsburgh. I mean, they're going to. Did you see the quote that the offensive coordinator Mac Canada or whatever was just like, we're gonna do whatever Ben wants to do, and it's like, oh yeah, like that worked out last year and every other year the past few years.
Yeah, I mean, looking towards the end of the year, like Ben started taking over the play calling, and that's when Pittsburgh really started going downhill.
Exactly.
It's like, this is setting up to where, I mean, it's going to be the Browns and the Ravens for like the next. Granted, the Bengals are getting there. They still need to improve that offensive line to protect Joe Burrow, but it is
If
shaping
Zach
up to.
Taylor's if Zach Taylor's their head coach, I don't trust him.
No, I mean, he's probably, I haven't even looked, but I'm sure he's the odds on favorite to be the first coach fired. Although at the same time, Mike Brown
Cincinnati
doesn't.
never fires.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
he
just,
doesn't.
whenever his contract goes up, that's when he'll be gone. But I mean, it is shaping up to be Browns, Ravens for potentially the next decade in the North. And you got to give the Browns the edge because if Baltimore's shielding their quarterback from criticism, it's like you guys are worried about giving him this money, obviously. Because if he's not making strides as a pocket passer, then why are you giving him potentially 40 million? But at the same time, I'm like, give him all the money you want, Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to pay him $45 million and he can't throw a crisp 20-yard pass attempt to Sammy Watkins, like, it does not look good for the Baltimore Ravens. But hey, who are we to complain about
it? and the whole fact of like, oh my god, I just lost my train of thought. God damn it. Oh well.
You're good.
I was gonna say something and I was like, what was I gonna say? Oh well. My bad.
You're fine. But this was a lot of fun, Caitlin. I really enjoyed you coming on the pod.
Dude, it was awesome, man.
Yeah.
Just sitting here chilling, talking Browns. I mean, who doesn't love that? Yeah,
For
it's
sure.
the middle of June. It's the dog days of summer, but as my dog's barking outside.
Before we get on out, we do need to congratulate one of our buddies, Andy Lytle, who is working for the OBR now. And Stephen Thomas is joining in with Not the Same Old Browns podcast. I think that's a great pairing because they're both hilarious. They're both passionate about Browns football. Like, it's a perfect fit. It's just like Stefanski and Barry. I think, and Andy's been busting his tail when it comes to content creation the last couple of years, and I'm glad it's paying off for him. I think him working for the OBR is a great fit as well. So I just want to congratulate Andy on that because he's been a good friend, and I'm excited for what he's going to bring to them.
Yeah, it's funny. Me and Andy are extremely close, so I've been sitting on that news for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm just so happy for him. It's insane to think was 12, 13 episodes in, and he was already picked up by the OBR. And, he it just, I'm sure if you want to, make sure you just go listen to his episode where he kind of runs down, it's not even a new format. It's just like the new era, which is weird to even say 12 episodes in of Not the Same Old Browns. But I'm so happy for him. I want to see all my friends and good people have a ton of success, and I'm just so happy for him. And yeah, I mean, I have nothing but awesome things to say about Andy. So, just congratulations, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when he jumped into the Browns podcasting world, I was super excited because I know what kind of guy he is when it comes to content creating, and he's hilarious and he's passionate about the Browns, and the podcast has been phenomenal. Like it's one of my go-to listens every week, and
Yep.
now him working with the OBR, working with Stephen Thomas, who's been another good friend of mine. And also great at what he does when it comes to the Browns with his mock drafts and everything. Like it was a perfect fit. And like, the first episode was good because they just kind of BS'd and talked about, the draft picks and stuff. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do, not only once, but twice, because they're going to be doing 2 episodes a week. So
Yeah.
it's going to be great to see what they're going to bring to the table. In terms of this podcast, for all our listeners, we're probably not going to do another one until training camp starts just because we're in a lull period. And, it's tough to come up with, content like each week, especially when there's nothing going on. If there's a breaking news story, if, there's an extension or a trade potentially or a free agent signing, we'll probably jump back in and talk. But whether it's me, Anthony, whoever we can, anybody from the Dogland to hop on with us. But this will probably be the last episode until training camp starts. So if anybody wants to know like what's going on with the podcast, we're just probably going to go on our little summer vacation, and we'll be back in late July to get ready for the season, which is going to be a fun one. It's going to be probably the most fun Brown season we've had in a long time. And that's saying something because last year was really fun. But
But now we can all experience it.
Yes. Now
we could go to training camp. We can go to the games. We could tailgate. I mean, we could do it. Just what normal good football team. I mean, we have actual excitement and expectations and real excitement and real expectations, not fake expectations like 2019. Like we saw what they did last year, and they basically just brought back the entire team on offense. They made vast improvements on defense. Dude, I mean, I I mean, there's just so many. I'm so happy for, like, I mean, you've been doing this for how long? Like, what was the first year for the Dogland podcast?
2017.
So 0-16.
So we started at the lowest of lows, and now we're ascending to the highest of highs. And yeah, I mean, we're going on season 5 of the pod, and yeah, like Super Bowl talk is real. Like this is going to be amazing. Like hopefully it lives up to the hype. Hopefully it exceeds the hype. And come February, we're in the Super Bowl, hopefully hosting the Lombardi Trophy. So, but if not, like even if we get to, say the AFC title game or we get to the Super Bowl and lose, like it's gonna be a great year. Like
of course.
We're only going up from here at this point, Caitlin.
Just win playoff games.
Yes.
That's the expectation now. Oh, that was my point about Lamar Jackson, about winning playoff games. That was gonna be my point.
Yeah.
That Baker Mayfield is 1-1 in the playoffs, and Lamar Jackson, the former MVP that they're gonna pay all this money to, is 1-3 because he can't throw the ball in the playoffs. That the gimmicky offense, when you have an entire week to sit down and just completely game plan for this one game because it's the most important game on your schedule. Obviously, we've seen what happened. So yeah, that was my point.
I mean, it's very true. Like Lamar has to, like he did finally win a playoff game this year, but I mean, at the same time, it's like you gotta once you get paid, like the expectations go even higher. Like Baltimore is going to expect you to go win a Super Bowl if they're paying you $40 million a year, and I don't know if he can do that, especially the type of player he is. Like I like watching him play because he is so dynamic, but you got to start doing it more from the pocket. You look at all the great quarterbacks,
and they have to, and it's not just like playing from the pocket. They have to win 3 to 4 playoff games a year using the same like the same like their same offense. You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's
for
not
sure.
One game that they can, like the Browns. One game they could just run Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and then they could put it on Baker Mayfield. I mean, it's literally the Lamar Jackson and running back show because they're not going to trust the other guys at wide receiver, and they're not going to trust Lamar Jackson throwing the ball. So, yeah, that was ultimately that was going to be my point. So sorry.
No,
Yeah.
you're good. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the 2021 season. We're looking forward to bringing you great content, not only on this podcast, but the dogland.com. So definitely go check that out. Follow me on Twitter at JackMcCurry08. And then, Katelin, I'll let you have the floor, promote your podcast and your Twitter, and we'll get on out of here.
Yeah, you could just follow me on Twitter at Katelin Knows CLE. That is Katelin, Katelin Knows KNOWS CLE. I have a handful of podcasts. The main one, Crunch Time with Caitlin. There's been a little bit of a break. Like the last interview was you, and then I did an episode on I ranked the top 41 quarterbacks going into 2021, and then I got sick with allergies, so I'm just finally feeling better and have a voice. So that's why there's been no episode. It's because I've been sick. So yeah, you can just follow me on Twitter and see all the shit I tweet and post about my podcast and whatnot. So yeah, that's the best place to find me. It's the only social media I have.
You're smart. Just limiting it to one, even though Twitter has become so toxic lately. But until next time, Browns fans, go Browns.